The courtroom fell silent as my Uncle James straightened his expensive tie and declared with absolute confidence, "Your Honor, I purchased all 12 properties from my brother fair and square. I have the signed documents right here." Judge Martinez raised an eyebrow, looking between the stack of papers James's lawyer was presenting and my calm expression. "Ms. Chen, your response to your uncle's claim." I opened my laptop, maintaining eye contact with James as I connected it to the courtroom's display system. "Your Honor, I'd like to show you a video recorded at Sunrise Valley Nursing Home 3 weeks ago. The date and time stamps are authenticated." James's lawyer suddenly stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Objection, Your Honor. This evidence wasn't submitted during discovery." "Actually," I smiled, "it was." Page 47 of our evidence list clearly includes a video testimony from Richard Chin, dated March 15. "Your office acknowledged receipt." The judge nodded. "Objection overruled. Proceed, Ms. Chen." As I pressed play, I watched James's face transform from smug certainty to growing horror. On the screen, my father's face appeared, tired but clear-eyed, as he systematically destroyed James's elaborate scheme to steal our family's legacy. But let me back up and explain how we got here. I'm Anna Chin, 34, a corporate lawyer specializing in real estate transactions. My father, Richard Chin, built a successful property development business from nothing after immigrating to America in the 1980s. Through decades of hard work, he acquired 12 valuable commercial properties across the city. Dad's pride was the Chin Plaza shopping center downtown, but each property had its own story. The apartment complex he bought and renovated for immigrant families, the office building where he gave preferential lease terms to minority-owned businesses, the warehouse he converted into affordable artist studios. Uncle James, my father's younger brother, took a different path in life. While Dad built his business through honest work, James bounced between get-rich-quick schemes and failed ventures. He was always looking for the easy way, the angle to exploit. "Your uncle just needs time to find his path," Dad would say whenever James asked for money. He helped James out of numerous financial holes over the years, always believing his brother would eventually straighten out. 3 years ago, Dad was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's. It was devastating for our family, watching this brilliant, detail-oriented man struggle with basic tasks. My mother Mary became his primary caregiver, but as his condition worsened, we made the difficult decision to move him into specialized care at Sunrise Valley. That's when James started showing up more frequently, always when I was at work. He'd bring documents for Dad to sign, claiming they were routine business matters that Dad had supposedly discussed with him earlier. The nursing staff later told me they felt uncomfortable about these visits, but James would insist it was family business and that he had authority to handle Dad's affairs. I first noticed something was wrong when I was reviewing Dad's quarterly property management reports. Lease payments for several properties had been redirected to new accounts. When I investigated, I discovered paperwork claiming James had purchased all 12 properties for a fraction of their value. The documents were dated over the past year, during periods when Dad's confusion was at its worst. James had taken advantage of his own brother's illness to steal millions of dollars worth of property. Dad would never sell the plaza, I told my mother. He planned to pass these properties to us for community benefit. We need to fight this. But James had prepared well. He had documents, witnesses, all somehow connected to his latest business ventures, and his story about Dad wanting to simplify his affairs before his condition worsened. What James didn't know was that I'd been quietly documenting everything, every suspicious visit, every questionable document, every irregular financial transaction. More importantly, I'd been recording Dad's moments of clarity at the nursing home. Sunrise Valley had an excellent memory care program that helped residents maintain and document their lucid periods. The staff worked with me to record Dad's statements about his properties and his relationship with James. "I would never sell the plaza," Dad said clearly in one recording. "That's for Anna to manage for the community. James knows this. He's trying to steal what I built." We filed a lawsuit to void the property transfers, alleging fraud and exploitation of a vulnerable adult. James countersued, claiming the sales were legitimate and demanding the courts enforce the contracts. That's how we ended up in this courtroom. watching James's carefully constructed scheme collapse as my father's video testimony played on the large screen. In the video, Dad methodically went through each property, explaining its significance and his plans for its future. He directly addressed James's claims, pointing out specific details that proved the sales couldn't have happened as described. The warehouse, Dad said on screen. James claims I sold it last August. I was in the hospital with pneumonia all that month. Check the records. I wasn't signing any documents. The judge leaned forward, clearly engaged. James's lawyer had stopped objecting and was furiously whispering with his client. The plaza, Dad continued. The contract shows I signed it on Mom's birthday. We were all at her celebration dinner. James wasn't even there. He was in Las Vegas that weekend. Check his credit card statements. One by one, Dad demolished the fake sales. He recalled dates, meetings, and details that proved James's documents couldn't be genuine. More importantly, the video showed Dad's clear mental state when discussing these matters. My brother thinks because I'm sick, I don't remember, Dad said sadly, but I remember everything he's doing. He's stealing from his own family. When the video ended, the courtroom was silent except for James's heavy breathing. His lawyer stood up slowly. Your Honor, my client would like to request a brief recess to discuss. To discuss what? Judge Martinez interrupted. How to explain the multiple instances of fraud just revealed, the apparent forgery of documents, the exploitation of a vulnerable adult. The judge turned to James directly. Mr. Chen, I've seen a lot of property disputes between family members, but this is extraordinary. You took advantage of your own brother's illness to steal his life's work. James tried one last desperate play. Your Honor, those videos could be edited. My brother's condition means he's easily confused. The videos are authenticated by the nursing home staff. I interjected. We have their sworn statements about Dad's mental state during filming. We also have security footage of your visits, showing you pressuring Dad to sign documents while he was heavily medicated. James's lawyer began packing his briefcase. Your Honor, given this new evidence, my client would like to withdraw his countersuit and discuss a settlement. Oh, we're way past settlement, Judge Martinez said firmly. This court is referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation. Mr. Chen, I suggest you find a criminal defense attorney. I watched my uncle's face crumple as he realized the magnitude of his mistake. He'd assumed that Dad's illness meant there would be no consequences for his actions. He'd underestimated both Dad's moments of clarity and my determination to protect our family's legacy. The judge's ruling was comprehensive. All property transfers to James were voided. He was ordered to repay any rental income he'd collected, plus penalties and legal fees. The evidence was referred for criminal prosecution for elder abuse and fraud. As we left the courthouse, my mother squeezed my hand. Your father would be so proud of you, she said. You protected everything he built. The aftermath of the court case sent shockwaves through our extended family. James's reputation was destroyed. His business associates, learning how he tried to steal from his sick brother, wanted nothing to do with him. Criminal charges followed, resulting in a plea deal that required full restitution and barred James from any involvement in property transactions. He eventually moved to another state, but not before making one last attempt at manipulation. You've ruined me, he told me during a chance encounter at a family funeral. My own niece, destroying my life. No, Uncle James, I replied calmly. You ruined yourself when you tried to steal from your sick brother. I just made sure there was evidence. The Chin Plaza and our other properties continued to serve the community as Dad had intended. I took over management, implementing the plans Dad and I had discussed during his lucid periods at Sunrise Valley. The warehouse artists kept their affordable studios. The immigrant families in our apartment complex stayed in their homes. The minority-owned businesses in our office building continued to grow and thrive. Dad's condition progressed as Alzheimer's inevitably does, but he had moments of joy seeing his properties continue their mission. The nursing home staff would drive him past the plaza, and his face would light up with recognition. Anna manages now, he would say proudly. She understands. It's not just buildings, it's community. The video that exposed James's scheme became a teaching tool at the local bar association's ethics seminars. Estate lawyers used it to demonstrate both the vulnerability of elderly clients and the importance of documenting capacity. James's lawyer was sanctioned by the state bar for his role in the fraud. He admitted knowing the documents were questionable but claimed James had assured him everything was legitimate. A lawyer's duty is to the truth. The Bar Association panel wrote in their decision, not to enabling family members to steal from vulnerable relatives. 2 years after the court case, I was reviewing property records when I discovered something interesting. James had attempted to take out loans against several properties during the period he claimed to own them. The banks had declined their due diligence, revealing issues with his ownership claims. Your uncle tried to leverage properties he didn't own, my assistant explained, showing me the rejected loan applications. The banks saw red flags and reported them, but the reports went to departments that didn't communicate with each other. This discovery led to a new policy at our management company, regular audits of all property records and loan applications, ensuring no one could ever attempt James's scheme again. The criminal case against James concluded with a plea agreement. He admitted his crimes, agreed to restitution, and accepted a ban from any property-related business. The judge, noting the exploitation of a vulnerable family member, also required community service at an Alzheimer's care facility. Maybe working with dementia patients will teach you empathy, the criminal court judge told him, though I doubt it. Mom moved into a cottage on the Plaza property, keeping Dad's vision alive through community programs and events. She started a support group for families dealing with early-onset Alzheimer's, sharing our story as a warning about protecting vulnerable relatives. The nursing home strengthened their protocols around document signing, requiring independent verification for any legal or financial papers. They used Dad's case to train staff on recognizing and preventing financial exploitation. Dad's moments of clarity became less frequent, but he never lost his connection to the properties he'd built. Sometimes he'd point out windows in the nursing home, describing buildings only he could see. Each one has a purpose, he'd say. Each one helps someone. James made one final attempt at redemption, sending a letter through his new lawyer offering to make amends in exchange for dropping the criminal charges. Your uncle still doesn't understand, Mom said, reading the letter. This was never about money, it was about trust and family. We donated the video evidence to an elder abuse prevention organization, which used it to create training materials for financial institutions and healthcare workers. Dad's story helped protect other vulnerable seniors from similar exploitation. The Chin Plaza thrived under new management policies I implemented based on Dad's original vision. We expanded the community programs, added affordable housing units, and created a small business incubator for immigrant entrepreneurs. This is what the properties were meant for, I explained to a local business journal, not as assets to be stolen, but as resources to build community. James's betrayal had an unexpected positive effect. It brought the rest of our family closer together. Relatives who had enabled his schemes in the past now understood the importance of protecting vulnerable family members. Regular family meetings became a tradition, with transparent discussions about property management and community impact. We established a family council to oversee the properties, ensuring decisions aligned with Dad's original mission. The legal community took notice of our case. I was invited to speak at conferences about elder financial abuse and property fraud. The video evidence became a powerful tool for teaching lawyers about protecting vulnerable clients. Dad's legacy grew beyond the physical properties. The Chin Family Foundation was established, providing scholarships for immigrant students and grants for community development projects. The artist studios in the warehouse produced a collaborative art installation about memory and family, dedicated to Dad. It traveled to galleries nationwide, raising awareness about both elder abuse and the importance of affordable spaces for artists. James's daughter, my cousin Sarah, contacted me a year after the court case. She discovered additional evidence of her father's schemes, attempts to defraud other family members that hadn't succeeded. I found his notebooks, she said, sharing documents that revealed the full scope of his plans. He was going to steal from anyone he could. You stopped him before he could hurt more people. The notebooks became part of the criminal case record, leading to additional charges and an extended ban from financial activities. James's schemes had been more extensive than anyone realized. Dad's condition continued to progress. But the nursing home staff found that visits to the properties could still bring moments of engagement. They developed a therapy program around these visits, helping other residents maintain connections to their past achievements. The courtroom video remained in my office, a reminder that sometimes protecting family means standing up to family. The judge's laughter at James's claims became less important than Dad's clear voice describing his legacy. 5 years after the court case, the Chin Plaza hosted a community celebration of Dad's vision. Tenants, residents, and community members shared stories about how the properties had impacted their lives. Mr. Chen gave us a chance when no one else would, said Mrs. Rodriguez, who'd opened her first restaurant in the plaza 20 years earlier. Now my children have opportunities one never dreamed of. James never attended family gatherings again, his shame or anger keeping him away, but his attempts to steal our family's legacy had only made that legacy stronger, more resilient, and more focused on its original purpose. The properties remained in family management, protected by legal structures I created based on our experience. Future generations would continue Dad's mission of building community through responsible property development. Dad's video testimony, which had exposed James's fraud, became part of our family history. It showed not just the defeat of a deception, but the strength of a man who, even facing cognitive decline, fought to protect what he'd built for others. The judge's laughter at James's claims was just a moment in court, but Dad's vision for his properties continues to change lives. His legacy isn't just in buildings or legal victories, but in the communities that thrive because he understood that property ownership comes with responsibility. And that's something no fraudulent document could ever steal.
I looked at the video playing on my phone and couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was footage from our home security cameras showing our bedroom. I have an app on my phone that lets me see what's happening at home when I'm not there. In the video, I saw my husband with another woman. They seemed very close, like more than just friends. Then, I heard their voices. You sure she doesn't suspect anything? Yeah. I've been following your instructions exactly. She has no idea. It's going perfectly. I can't believe it. They laughed together. Then they playfully got onto the bed. I couldn't believe it. The woman with my husband was actually my own sister. My name is Nancy Hadley. I'm 50 years old. My husband David is turning 55 this year. We've been married for 20 years and we don't have any children. We used to have a comfortable life because we both worked. But things changed about 10 years ago when David was diagnosed with early onset dementia. As time passed, David's memory problems got worse. He started forgetting important meetings with clients and even how to do his job. Work became really hard for him, and everyday tasks became a struggle. He'd forget where he put things, how to dress himself. And he'd often get lost and bump into things because he couldn't remember directions. Once, he even left the kettle on, which nearly caused a fire. So David and I decided to ask my sister, Anne, for help. She runs a care home, so we trusted her advice. We took David to a hospital she recommended for tests, and that's when the doctors told us he had early onset dementia. Because of this, David had to stop working, and now we have a caregiver from Anne's facility come to our home twice a week to help out. Nowadays, I'm the one bringing in the money for our family, working hard every day, I said with a sigh. Nancy, how's David holding up? It was the day our regular caregiver, Ms. Johnson, came over. Annie came along with her. And you came too. He's your husband after all, so I'm worried too. Ever since we started relying on Anne's help, she would often come over before I went to work. She's been looking after David like a brother ever since we got married, because she always wanted a big brother when we were younger. She was really upset when David was diagnosed with dementia, even though she was supposed to be busy with work herself. I really appreciate her checking in on us like this. I'm so grateful to Anne and Ms. Johnson for helping me take care of David while I'm at work. If I didn't have my job, we'd have money problems, so I'm really thankful for them. But they can't come on weekends, so I'm the only one taking care of David then. I'm working during the week and looking after David on weekends, and I hardly have any time for myself. I didn't realize it before, but I must be really tired, I explained. A nurse who knew me from the hospital where I took David for his checkups noticed how tired I looked. Mrs. Hadley, taking care of your husband is tough, but you need some time for yourself to rest. You're right, I know that. I could ask Anne and Ms. Johnson for help if I really needed it, but I don't want to bother them anymore. Oh, by the way, there's a new nurse here who used to work at a dementia hospital in New York. Maybe she can offer some help. See, there she is, the nurse pointed out. When I followed the nurse's gesture, I couldn't believe what I saw. It was Amy, my best friend from college. Amy looked just as surprised as I felt. We hugged each other tightly, overjoyed to be reunited. Amy, who used to play softball in college, still looked sharp with her neat short haircut. Nancy, you look exactly the same. And you haven't changed a bit, Amy. I'm so happy to see you. Amy shared that she had waited for her kids to grow up, ended her marriage, and come back to our hometown. Just tell me when you're free for a coffee, she suggested. When David finished his test and came out of the examination room in his wheelchair, Amy seemed taken aback. Oh, this is my husband, David. It feels like forever since we got married. Yep, it's been quite a while, I agreed. Amy, crouching down to David's eye level in the wheelchair, stopped for a moment. Is everything okay? I'm sorry, David. We met at your wedding once. Really? I'm counting on you for future care. Thanks in advance. David smiled at her and replied. Amy seemed to be studying David with a thoughtful expression. Maybe seeing my confusion, she stood up with a smile. I've looked after many patients like your husband before. So, if you ever need advice, I'm here for you. I think I can help, Amy offered. Yeah, I'll definitely count on you. Thanks, Amy. We waved goodbye. After that, I bumped into Amy several times, like when I went to pick up David's medicine or when his health worsened. Each time, Amy looked at me with worry, but I pretended not to notice and shrugged it off. A few months after reconnecting with Amy, David and I went to the hospital together. Just as David was called in for his examination, I heard someone call my name. When I turned around, there was Amy, looking serious. Amy, is everything okay? David just went in for his exam. Can we talk for a moment? Yeah, sure, Amy replied, leading me to a counseling room. Nancy, how are you managing with David? And are you worried about me? Thanks, I began, discussing David's recent health and how the constant caregiving was affecting me physically. Amy listened closely, and I thought she was simply concerned about my well-being. But then she said something unexpected. Actually, Nancy, what she told me next was hard to believe. About a week before we met again, Amy started, recounting a shopping trip where she saw Anne with a man she recognized. Anne's face was familiar as my sister, but Amy also thought she recognized the man. When Amy approached and Anne introduced him as her boyfriend, it wasn't until we met again at the hospital that I realized it was David, your husband. It all seemed so confusing. That's really surprising. No wonder you seemed puzzled at the time, I remarked. Amy explained that she had seen Anne and David together in town a week before we crossed paths again. However, David didn't seem to notice Amy's presence at all. I looked quite different then. I had long hair and wore glasses. That might explain why he didn't recognize me, but still. Also, there's something else bothering me, Amy continued. She noticed that David's behavior at the hospital didn't match someone with dementia. It felt unnatural, almost like someone pretending to have dementia. The man I saw in town was walking confidently, speaking clearly. He seemed perfectly healthy. Could there have been a mix-up? Maybe you mistook him for someone else? I don't think so. You know, David has those distinct moles under his right eye, right? The man with Anne had them too. It's kind of a distinctive feature for a guy. I'm sorry, I shouldn't talk about your husband like that. Amy apologized, realizing her comment might have been inappropriate. But it's true, David does have those moles. It's not common to find someone else with the same face and moles in the same spot. So could it be that David has been pretending to have dementia for 10 years and is having an affair with Anne? It was a shocking idea, but Amy seemed sincere. Honestly, I don't think this hospital is very good, Amy confessed. The doctors here aren't great, and I've heard some bad rumors too. Doesn't it seem odd that they have so many patients? So, I really think you should get David properly checked to see if he really has dementia, Amy said, looking serious. Amy's words struck me deeply. I went to a big store and bought a home security camera. I placed it in hidden spots in the living room and bedroom to secretly record what was happening while I was at work. I set it up to watch on my smartphone and checked in during breaks. To my surprise, David's behavior on camera was different from what he showed me. He didn't seem confused or lost. He was living quite normally. Plus, when Miss Johnson, who had asked to care for David, arrived, There was no sign of her taking care of him. I also discovered that Anne had been visiting my house frequently while I was away. Their conversations were clearly recorded on the footage. "You're not getting caught pretending to have dementia, right, David?" Anne asked. "Yeah, pretending not to know the date or where things are is working perfectly, just like Anne suggested. Acting like I can't write or go outside, and mixing up day and night, seems to be fooling Nancy. She's trusting, so she won't suspect a thing. And as for Miss Johnson, she's fine. She's a single mom and needs the money. I've been paying her more, and she's staying quiet," David explained. They laughed together, flirted, and then went to the bedroom. I was stunned when I saw the footage. I couldn't believe my own sister and husband were scheming behind my back. But the proof was right there on the camera. I felt lost, confronted with the undeniable truth. A few days later, I felt the need to speak with Miss Johnson, who had been looking after David. When I reached out to her, she said she could meet the following Saturday. I went to her apartment and showed her the footage. She looked defeated and apologized tearfully, admitting, "What you see in this footage is the truth. I've been lying to you all this time, and I'm truly sorry. I don't have a license, and I was struggling to find another job. Anne offered me a job with good pay, so I went along with her plan." Despite her need for money, Miss Johnson felt guilty for assisting Anne in deceiving someone. Because of her guilt, I was able to obtain her testimony. She also gave me copies of receipts, daily reports, and her diary from that time. No matter how desperate I was for money, what I did was wrong as a human being. "I'm deeply sorry," she repeated her apologies. With Miss Johnson's evidence and testimony, I decided to gather more proof. After speaking with a few other involved parties and hearing their accounts, I consulted my lawyer and chose to confront David and Anne at the place where they were having their affair. On a typical weekday, I pretended to leave for work as usual and waited near my house. When Anne arrived, and it seemed like the right moment, likely when they were occupied with each other, I returned home and caught them in the act. They panicked, unable to escape, and I spoke coldly. "I know everything now, David." David's expression shifted from surprise to guilt as he looked at me. "I heard you lost interest in your job, got pushed aside, and began to dislike your work. A colleague told me. You were telling your coworkers, 'There's nothing left for me here. Nancy is earning well. I want to quit and live a relaxed life.'" Seeing my composed demeanor, David started confessing hastily. "It wasn't my idea. It was Anne who tempted me. She suggested we pretend to have dementia, and you take care of us while you're at work. We could meet as much as we wanted. Even Miss Johnson was hired by Anne to create an alibi." His words seemed to shift the blame onto Anne, portraying himself as a victim. But Anne's reaction was explosive. "What on earth? David was just as involved in the plan, and now he's trying to dodge responsibility. That's cowardly. Shut up. You're the one who pushed me into this." "I just went along with it," David fired back. My heart grew colder as they argued, completely exposed. I couldn't bear to witness this any longer. "That's it, both of you get out." I decided to take drastic action. I threw them out of the living room window, along with their scattered clothes from Anne's purse, then shut the window. Despite their banging and pleas for explanation, I closed the curtains and ignored them. When they wouldn't stop, I sent a firm message on WhatsApp. "Be quiet. If you don't leave now, I'll call the cops." Suddenly, they fell silent. Their constant visits and messages on WhatsApp grated on my nerves in the following days. So, I sold the house and moved to a weekly rental apartment. When David was diagnosed with dementia, I had changed the house title to my name. David, now retired, couldn't pay the mortgage anymore, and I made the change beforehand to avoid complications with decision-making authority in his condition. Selling the house unexpectedly fetched a good price, allowing me to buy an apartment with the saved money. Though I hadn't anticipated this situation, past Nancy had done well. I filed for divorce from David and claimed a fair share of assets. It wasn't about whether he could pay or not. It was a statement of, "You did this to me. I'll never forgive or forget it." After divorcing me, David remarried and now lives in Anne's house. However, it seems their relationship isn't going well. My assumption is that they were swept up in the excitement of their affair. But once they got married, reality hit them. They can no longer just be lovers living together. They have to face the ups and downs of married life, and it must be tough for them. Even if they consider breaking up, both of their parents have passed away, and the house we used to live in has been sold. They have no family to rely on and nowhere to escape, so they're left to deal with everything on their own. Frankly, I couldn't care less. I believe they got what they deserved. Thanks to Miss Johnson's revelation, Anne's facility lost its license and was shut down. It turns out the facility wasn't making enough money to repay the loans they took out when they opened, so Anne now has a lot of debt. It seems like a fitting punishment for a sister who stole her own sister's husband. As for the quack doctor who gave the fake diagnosis, he faced consequences too. After the incident, his staff, including Amy, quit one by one, making it impossible to keep his clinic open. It turns out he was issuing false medical reports for profit, just like he did for David, and this led to his downfall. Learning the truth shocked me. I realized how outrageous some doctors can be. But I also had to admit my own fault. I was too trusting. I took my sister's word and the quack doctor's claims without questioning them. According to Amy, I'm too kind and trusting. I don't like to doubt people. But now, I'm reflecting on that. I realize I need to be more skeptical and think for myself. Amy seems to have found a new job at a large general hospital in the neighboring town, and she's doing really well there. Her experience from working in a New York hospital is highly valued, and she's already earned the trust of her colleagues. She seems to be enjoying her work a lot. On Amy's recommendation, Miss Johnson also started working at the hospital cafeteria, which is great news. Amy's eyes light up whenever she sees my puppy playing with a ball. I brought him home about a month ago, and he's become my precious companion, comforting me after long days at work. Since I got him, Amy has been visiting my apartment more often. She claims it's because he's so cute. But I know she's also worried about me, even if she won't admit it. Even though I've lost my husband, I'm grateful to spend this wonderful time with my best friend. Being single and enjoying the company of another woman doesn't sound so bad after all.
I'm Melissa, and my husband is Paul. He's a light novel writer and a freelancer who juggles multiple writing projects. I assist him as a secretary in his home office. On a typical day, I was deep into work alongside Paul. As the clock struck 3 p.m., I yearned for a brief break. Yet our tranquility was shattered by the abrupt thud of the front door swinging open. Paul and I exchanged worried glances, bracing ourselves for what was to come. Party time. The living room door swung open with a bang, courtesy of Paul's older sister, Donna. Despite supposedly residing at her parents' house, she made a daily appearance at 3 p.m., indulging in tea and devouring all the snacks we had received as gifts before heading home. Once more, I found myself engrossed in work. Can't you see we're busy? Can't this wait? Don't be such a killjoy. I just want my tea, Donna retorted, unfazed by our irritation. Who do you think you're talking to? Donna flung herself onto the couch, crossing her legs with an air of entitlement. True to form, she raided our snack stash, filling the room with the loud crunching of her indulgence. Listen, it's beyond belief, Donna, I vented, frustration bubbling. She's so presumptuous and arrogant, acting like the world revolves around her. She claims to be a live streamer, but who knows how much she actually earns or anything about her work-from-home setup. And then she has the nerve to demand tea from me, her sister-in-law, as if I'm her personal servant. And as a result, Donna receives a scolding from my in-laws, though it's merely a temporary halt to her behavior. This demeanor has persisted since I first began dating Paul in high school, so it doesn't faze me much. Handle it yourself, I retorted. Don't you dare sass me, Donna shot back, her words punctuated by the scattering of snacks from her mouth to the floor. You dare talk back to me? You're the newcomer here. You should know your place. As the eldest daughter, I demand respect. If you can't handle it, then maybe you should consider a divorce. I was seething with anger at Donna's remark, but it was Paul who displayed frustration first. That's it. You're being unbearable. Leave. What? Hold on. Hold on. Paul rose from his seat, seized Donna's arm, and escorted her out, her protests echoing through the room. And if you ever use the spare key we misplaced to barge in here again, I won't be so forgiving. I'll be informing Mom and Dad about this. Enough, Donna. Enough fuss, Paul commanded firmly. He reached the front door, where Donna continued her complaints, and secured the chain lock, ensuring she couldn't barge in again. With deliberate clarity, he made sure Donna heard the lock clicking into place. Then Paul swiftly dialed a number on his phone. Dad? Donna's here again. Just a moment. Paul paused to address his father. The persistent knocking on the door echoed throughout the room, but eventually it ceased. It seemed Donna had finally relented and departed. Paul and I breathed a collective sigh of relief. I'm sorry for the trouble, Donna's presence seemed to prompt an apology from me. No need to apologize. Donna's been treating Paul like a servant since she was little. Paul, being gentle and quiet, never pushed back. But ever since we got together and married, he's been learning to stand up for himself, I explained. However, it's been almost 2 years since we married, and her constant visits need addressing. She even showed up uninvited while we had guests recently. Lately, our editor has been dropping by, typically between 3 and 4 p.m. Donna once even tried to flirt with the editor, asking, "I'm his sister, what are your hobbies?" It was so embarrassing that we've had to arrange for the editor to visit in the mornings instead. Paul prefers to focus on work in the mornings, you see. I heard from your mother-in-law that Donna feels uncomfortable at home. Maybe she's like a hermit there, and her frustration might be directed at us due to her parents nagging. I'm sorry, I should be better at keeping her at a distance. Don't stress about it, I reassured my partner. By the way, don't forget, we're heading to your parents' place to discuss restaurant options for their 60th birthday celebration. We could bring up Donna's situation then, I suggested. Great idea, it's high time we addressed it. I spoke to Dad earlier, and he wasn't aware Donna had taken the spare key. But they do change its hiding spot regularly, don't they? My partner responded. Yeah, Dad recently stashed it in his wallet, which caused a bit of a hiccup, I confirmed. What's the matter? I inquired. It appears that some money went missing along with the key, my partner responded solemnly. What? But she's denying it, so tensions are running high back at home, I expressed concern. I was hesitant to broach the topic given the circumstances, but I truly appreciate my in-laws, who have been kind to me since high school. I'm determined to properly celebrate their 60th birthdays, I affirmed. I want your parents to have a wonderful time. We'll address the issue when the moment is appropriate, I assured my partner. Agreed. Oh, speaking of which, what type of restaurant did you have in mind? I compiled a list of options. Want to review them? My partner suggested. Sure, let's take a look, I replied. I presented Paul with the details of the restaurants I had researched and narrowed down. Seeing how diligently Paul worked, I wanted to offer my support in this regard. For the celebration, I intended to let my in-laws choose from the shortlisted options. A week later, we buzzed the intercom at my in-laws' house, but there was no response. Strange, they should be home, I remarked. Their car's not here. Maybe they're out, Paul suggested. Probably shopping, getting things ready for our visit, I added optimistically. Well, let's just go in and wait, Paul decided. Using the spare key, Paul unlocked the front door. As we stepped inside, hurried footsteps sounded from the second floor. Descending with a noisy clatter was Donna. Couldn't you have answered the intercom if you knew we were coming? I scolded. I'm busy, Donna snapped back. Hello, sister-in-law, Donna greeted me curtly, as usual. But her hurried descent hinted at another reason for her sudden appearance. Did you two prepare for Mom and Dad's 60th birthday celebration? Donna inquired. Yes, we did. Why do you ask? I responded. Where is it? Show me, Donna demanded. Ha! But you said you weren't coming, sis, I reminded her. I changed my mind. Just show it to me, Donna insisted. Here it is, Paul replied, revealing the setup. Originally, Donna had planned to skip the celebration altogether. Do we really need to celebrate that? She had remarked. But the true reason behind her reluctance was something unexpected from a daughter. Yet for some unknown reason, she decided to join. Oh, look at the esteemed writer, huh? You must be swimming in success. This fancy restaurant you've chosen, quite the high roller move, Donna remarked, eyeing the information she snatched from Paul with a snide chuckle. Why do you have to say things that irritate me? Paul snapped back. Why not? You must be raking it in, right? Though I'm making multiples of that, just so you know, she continued, her words always aimed at belittling Paul. If she truly earned multiples of his income, she'd easily clear 6 figures annually. However, there's no evidence to support this claim. Also, it was Melissa who selected the restaurant. Okay, can you please stop being so rude? Donna's intense stare made me uneasy. I instinctively retreated, asking, what's on your mind? But Donna proceeded to utter something utterly outrageous. Ah, there it is, Paul. You're finally witnessing this woman's true nature, aren't you? What? Oh, never mind. I'm excited for the celebration. Catch you later. Paul brushed off the comment. Donna then forcefully ushered both of us out the door. Strangely, she held onto the document, continuing her disruptive behavior yet again. Well, no big deal. We can print out the restaurant details whenever we need to, and then we can show my in-laws the photos to confirm, I reassured Paul. As it happened, our in-laws had completely forgotten about our visit that day and had gone to a Sunday farmers market instead. They apologized to us later for the mix-up. With the venue finalized and the reservation complete, we eagerly awaited the day of the 60th birthday celebration. As we arrived on site, Donna and our parents were already there. Despite our earlier awkward exchange with Donna, we tried to push it aside. However, her smug smile directed at me sparked a sense of unease. Nevertheless, we proceeded into the restaurant. We were led to a private room, exquisitely designed in traditional Japanese style, surpassing the beauty depicted in online photos. Just as my in-laws began to admire the room with smiles on their faces, Donna interjected from behind us, her grin mischievous. "Don't let yourselves be deceived, Mom and Dad," she remarked suddenly. Suddenly, Donna pointed a finger at me and shouted, "You're after our family's wealth, aren't you?" Her accusation startled not only me but also Paul, my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law, leaving us all in blank surprise. "Wealth? What?" I stammered, utterly confused by the sudden accusation. "What nonsense. We're just an ordinary middle-class family," Paul angrily interjected, but Donna's theatrics were far from over. "As the eldest daughter, I'm set to inherit this house. You're planning to target my parents too, aren't you?" "I won't be fooled," Donna continued, her tone accusatory. "I really don't understand what you're talking about. Why would you think I'd do such a thing?" I attempted to reason, but Donna seemed unwilling to engage in dialogue. "I've seen right through you from the start. You're a dangerous woman." Getting close to Paul, "And now this," Donna accused. "That's absurd. Paul and I have been together since high school. If wealth was my goal, I would have chosen differently," I defended, incredulous. Donna merely snickered at Paul's disbelief and continued her tirade. "A woman not after money would have picked a more modest restaurant. But look at this lineup. All expensive places," she boasted. Donna thrust some documents she had taken from Paul a few days ago into our hands. "What's the point?" I asked. "Don't you see? This woman believes she can manipulate your wealth however she pleases." "Simple-minded men," Donna jeered, bursting into laughter, oblivious to our growing realization of the situation's hopelessness. "I won't hand over the family's wealth. Paul, do you see now? This woman's true colors," Donna declared, urging Paul to understand. "Having her as family is a nuisance. You two should divorce. Paul, this is an order from your elder sister for the peace and security of our home. You need to divorce her and leave." "Stay away from my parents," Donna yelled, advancing towards me aggressively. That's when Paul intervened, stepping between Donna and me. "What on earth are you saying? Apologize to Melissa right now." "Wait a moment, Dad," Paul interjected. "What's this about money?" "Absurd. Melissa has been helping us organize our 60th birthday celebration, and you should be doing the same. Instead, you're creating unnecessary drama," Paul's father interjected. "No, Dad, take a look at this," Donna insisted, flustered as she hurriedly handed the documents to her father. My father-in-law perused the documents. "If you look closely, you'll understand. She's chosen outrageously expensive venues. She's draining the wealth of a middle-class family like ours, and all the expenses are falling on you and Mom, right? Am I mistaken?" he concluded with a heavy sigh. Paul and I, along with my mother-in-law, were left speechless. "Oh, what?" Paul's confusion was evident. "She's claiming we're footing the bill for the 60th birthday celebration," I clarified. "Huh?" Donna's eyes widened in surprise. "Well, it would be rather odd for the honoree to foot the bill," she reasoned. "Wait a moment, so you're insinuating Melissa is still spending Paul's money recklessly?" "See, I knew it all along," Donna accused. "What nonsense is this? Melissa works alongside me and you know my salary supports us both. There's no reason for concern," Paul countered. But, Donna faltered. "And what's your take on this, Mom?" Donna turned to her mother, hoping for support. My mother-in-law stood there, silently, her head bowed. "Exactly, Mom, you understand, right?" Donna appealed. "Listen, each of these venues holds cherished memories for your father and me," my mother-in-law explained. Donna was stunned. "Melissa specifically consulted us about it. She wanted to incorporate our memories into the celebration and choose a menu based on them," my mother-in-law continued. No way. Your disrespectful accusations are truly shameful. My mother-in-law's voice quivered with emotion. Tana was finally realizing her misconceptions, but it was too late to amend her errors, a realization that would soon become painfully clear. You've caused enough trouble. You're not welcome here anymore. Go home, Paul's father declared. But Dad, why are you being so harsh? I'm your daughter. You can't just throw me out, Donna protested. But you were planning on not attending in the first place, weren't you? Don't worry about the cancellation fee. I'll cover it, Paul's father replied firmly. Wait, hold on. It seems we've failed in raising you properly. We've indulged you as our daughter, but now we've reached our limit. Leaving is for the best. Don't make decisions without consulting us, Paul's mother added, turning to Donna. I agree. What do you, Paul, and Melissa think? My mother-in-law's smile was unsettling as she spoke cheerfully. Donna looked at us with teary eyes as if pleading for help, but I remembered your sister's advice not to intervene in family matters. No, that was about my parents, I interjected. Ah, I see. Then I'll keep my distance. Please leave, my mother-in-law concluded, her tone final. Sister-in-law, Donna reached out for me, but my father-in-law swiftly intervened, positioning himself between Donna and me. Go home, he commanded, his voice low and stern. Donna glanced at my father-in-law's determined expression, recoiled, and promptly exited the restaurant. Afterward, we celebrated my in-laws' 60th birthdays and savored our meal. Upon returning home, it was apparent that Donna had been sulking. However, my father-in-law reiterated that she should leave. Donna burst into tears and caused a scene, prompting us to contemplate sending her to a rehabilitation facility. I'm not sick, she spat out before disappearing. Rumors circulated that she found a job at a dormitory, but she struggled to maintain it, frequently changing jobs and addresses. Meanwhile, we remained dedicated to our daily grind. Our bond with my in-laws remained strong, and we cherished our time together. While we couldn't help but worry about our sister-in-law's well-being, we had no desire to endure her selfish behavior again. My priority remained supporting my husband so he could devote more energy to his work. Next customer. Please come this way, I called out as the cash registers grew increasingly crowded. Swiftly, I opened the adjacent register and began guiding customers through their transactions. After a concerted effort, the congestion eased, allowing me to return to restocking shelves. Mary, you're amazing at ringing up customers so quickly, remarked a fellow part-time employee, breaking the rhythm of my tasks. In this bustling supermarket, a diverse mix of high school students and individuals like myself populated the workforce, making each shift enjoyable. My name is Mary, a 45-year-old part-time housewife who found solace and purpose in this role for the past decade. When my child began elementary school, I sought employment and landed a part-time position at this local market. The environment, filled with fellow housewives and understanding managers, suited my lifestyle perfectly. Over the years, I transitioned into one of the senior part-timers, familiar with both customers and colleagues alike. However, a sudden change disrupted our routine when our beloved manager was transferred to headquarters for what seemed like a promotion. His replacement, a newcomer from the headquarters, lacked the familiarity and competence we had grown accustomed to. Slowly, the atmosphere soared as his managerial style clashed with the store's dynamics. Rumors circulated among part-timers speculating on the president's wife's preferences for young, charismatic managers. It became apparent that our new manager saw her favor, often seen engaging in conversation with her. Despite the dissatisfaction brewing among us, none dared to voice their concerns to the president's wife. Instead, some part-time housewives and student employees quietly began resigning. As the situation unfolded, I found myself contemplating whether it was time to seek alternative part-time employment, unsure of what the future held in this changing environment. I found myself in the crosshairs of the president's wife, her sudden inquiry catching me off guard. You've been working at the store for quite some time, haven't you? How's your child? Already in college? Which one? She prodded, surprising me with her directness. Yes, I've been here since the previous manager, I replied cautiously, not eager to delve into personal matters. Then, with a cutting tone, she remarked, You seem rather incompetent. I doubt you even attended a decent college, did you? Her words struck deep, but before I could respond, the register area became inundated with customers. I offered a quick nod to the president's wife and swiftly attended to my duties. In truth, my educational journey had ended with middle school. High school had been a tumultuous time, marked by bullying and eventual dropout during my third year. Since then, I had carved out a life as a part-time worker, eventually meeting my husband in a similar setting and building a life far removed from academic pedigrees. The president's wife, however, seemed to embody a stark contrast. She often boasted about her prestigious university background, yet curiously avoided divulging its name. It struck me as odd, but I brushed it off, lacking any particular interest. Perhaps she harbored preconceived notions about part-time workers like myself, assuming we lacked higher education. I recalled overhearing her discussing such matters with the store manager, leaving me to wonder if she looked down upon us. As murmurs circulated among fellow part-timers about similar interrogations, I found myself bracing for another encounter with the president's wife when, sure enough, she returned to the store the following day. "Excuse me," her voice cut through the air, signaling another potentially tense exchange. My attention snapped up when the president's wife directed her gaze towards me, a smirk playing on her lips as if she found amusement in some private joke. Despite the urge to react, I managed to rein in my irritation, keeping my emotions in check as she began to speak. "So, you're just a middle school graduate, aren't you? I never pegged you for a college goer, but to think you're managing here with that level of education is quite something," she remarked, her words dripping with thinly veiled condescension. I couldn't help but wonder where she had gleaned this information from, until I recalled the previous day's incident when the store manager had been scrutinizing the part-timers' resumes in the office. It seemed that what should have been confidential information had somehow found its way into the president's wife's hands. Annoyance bubbled within me at the thought of her freely sharing such personal details with other employees. I had never sought to fabricate my educational background, but the audacity of someone spreading rumors about my academic history grated on my nerves. While my fellow part-time colleagues seemed unfazed by the revelation, the president's wife took every opportunity to remind me of my supposed educational shortcomings. It became her refrain, peppering our interactions with thinly veiled jabs. "Maybe you wouldn't understand, being just a middle school graduate," she would quip, using my education as a pretext to assign me menial tasks like cleaning. The repetition of her taunts grated on my nerves, feeling a growing resentment towards my workplace. I began to question why I subjected myself to such treatment, feeling increasingly disheartened by her relentless needling. A few days later, when she returned to the store, her mere presence was enough to stir up irritation within me. As I attempted to sidestep her, she caught my eye and gestured towards the cardboard box storage area, an area typically left untouched as it was designated for supplier use. "People like you should be familiar with garbage," she sneered, her words laced with disdain. "Middle school graduates like yourself are just here to collect a paycheck." Her words stung, delivered in the privacy of the back room, shielded from the scrutiny of customers. It was a deliberate attempt to belittle me, a reminder of my perceived inadequacies in her eyes. I had always managed to endure, especially since most interactions occurred in the bustling sales area. But on that particular day, the weight of my pent-up frustration became too much to bear. "Excuse me, but I believe I earned my paycheck through diligent work, regardless of my educational background," I interjected, my tone laced with simmering anger. The president's wife appeared taken aback, clearly unaccustomed to such pushback. "If you're going to be here, why not contribute something beneficial to the store? We're never quite sure what you're up to," she retorted, her words dripping with disdain. Ignoring the curious glances of passing colleagues, I pressed on. "And what exactly are you contributing by gracing us with your presence? Chatting with the manager, flirting with male employees and high school part-timers, looking down on the rest of us?" I challenged, refusing to back down. Her face flushed crimson with rage as my words hit their mark. "Unlike someone like you, I have a busy schedule. Coming here takes time out of my day," she shot back, attempting to assert her superiority. I couldn't help but scoff at her assertion. "Do you truly believe that? Neither the employees nor the customers share your sentiment. It's intriguing how some with impressive educational backgrounds prove utterly ineffectual in practice," I countered, releasing the resentment I had long harbored towards her condescending attitude. Clearly flustered by my unexpected retort, the president's wife struggled to conjure a suitable response, resorting to tired clichés. "Do you honestly think you can continue working here after speaking to me like that?" she challenged, her voice tinged with disbelief. Without hesitation, I delivered my final verdict. "Then I'll resign. I declared, refusing to tolerate any further belittlement. In response, the president's wife let out a mocking laugh. "Well, that'll save us on labor costs," she sneered, her words dripping with derision. I returned the smile, nodding in agreement. "Yes, that's right. Good for you," I affirmed before making my way towards the locker room. Inside, I found a fellow part-timer who had witnessed the earlier exchange. I poured out the details of what had transpired, recounting the frustrations that had been building up. "Mary, are you really quitting?" she asked, her expression reflecting the sadness of our shared experiences over the years. "It just hasn't been the same since the manager changed. It feels like we're only here out of obligation," I confided, echoing her sentiments. "With so many people leaving, you'd think they'd hire more staff, but they'd rather cut costs." She nodded in understanding. "It's becoming unbearable. I don't blame you for wanting out." Leaving the locker room behind, I headed towards where the manager and the president's wife were engaged in conversation. Without preamble, I made my intentions clear. "That's it. I'm done," I stated firmly, meeting their surprised gazes head-on. The president's wife chuckled, seemingly amused by the news. "So, the junior high school graduate is calling it quits. I wonder where someone like you will find work," she remarked, her tone dripping with condescension. I refuse to let her words rattle me. "Even if I have nowhere else lined up, I won't be coming back here. I'll return my uniform next week. Thank you for everything," I declared, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. As I exited the supermarket, a sense of relief washed over me. The following week, when I returned to return my uniform, I found the store abuzz with commotion. The manager was being berated by irate customers near the cash register, suggesting some sort of transaction error. Despite the chaos, I felt a sense of peace knowing that I had made the right decision to leave. With my resignation already settled, I made my way towards the office to return my uniform. As I approached the door, the unmistakable voice of the president's wife reached my ears, giving me pause. Reluctantly, I pushed the door open, finding the former manager inside. Despite his new role at headquarters, my ingrained habit led me to address him as manager out of reflex. It seemed the president's wife had been engaged in conversation with him, but she hastily departed upon my arrival. "What happened at the register?" the former manager queried, his expression troubled. He proceeded to inform me of a spate of recent complaints at the store since my departure. With a cascade of resignations following mine, the store had been left scrambling to cope with the sudden exodus of part-timers and student workers. Though the manager attempted to fill in on the sales floor, his lack of familiarity with basic tasks like stocking shelves and operating the register led to a litany of customer complaints. Today's incident, however, involved a particularly embarrassing misstep. The president's wife, while conversing with a male employee, was mistaken for staff by a customer. Brushing off the inquiry, she exacerbated the situation when the manager inadvertently disclosed her true identity, sparking further discontent among patrons. As the register area swelled with customers, the absence of experienced part-timers compounded the chaos. Both unfamiliar employees and the manager found themselves manning the registers, resulting in numerous errors and lengthy delays. The escalating frustration among customers culminated in the manager facing a barrage of complaints, exacerbating an already tumultuous situation. Turning to me, the former store manager sought insight into the unfolding debacle, hoping for some semblance of understanding in the aftermath of my departure. When asked why I had decided to quit, I didn't hesitate to respond honestly. The former manager seemed genuinely interested in my reasons for leaving, and I felt it was only fair to provide him with the truth. In turn, he confided in me that he had heard rumors regarding the president's wife's educational background. While he lacked specific details, the word on the grapevine was that she had only graduated from high school. This revelation left me pondering the irony of her previous educational condescension. Could it be that the president's wife, with her supposed lack of higher education, was projecting her own insecurities onto others? It certainly made her seem all the more formidable and unpredictable. 2 weeks later, the supermarket I had once called my workplace stood deserted. The usual throng of customers was conspicuously absent, a stark contrast to the bustling scenes of my former shifts. It's no surprise, given all those complaints, I mused to myself as I observed the desolate scene. Lost in thought, I was approached from behind by the former store manager. After exchanging pleasantries, he mentioned a new store opening just one station away. He extended an offer, asking if I would be interested in joining the team. It appeared that an employee he had trained was being promoted to the position of store manager at the new location. Knowing the caliber of this individual, I felt a sense of trust and reassurance. I nodded in agreement and wasted no time in reaching out to my former part-time comrades. Upon confirmation of my role at the new store, I discovered that some of my former colleagues would also be joining me, a comforting realization amidst the uncertainty of change. Under the guidance of an understanding manager, I quickly settled into my new role. The atmosphere was welcoming, and I found it easy to establish rapport with my coworkers, both old and new. The new store introduced innovative offerings such as local side dishes and bread, which proved to be a hit with customers. As I embraced this fresh start, I couldn't help but feel optimistic about the opportunities that lay ahead. As I settled into my new role at the store, I was greeted by familiar faces from my time at the previous location. The transition to the new store went smoothly, marked by a successful launch and positive feedback from both customers and employees. However, I soon heard troubling reports about the old store. It had become notably quiet, and the manager found themselves facing frequent scoldings during head office meetings. A string of new hires as part-timers quickly came and went, exacerbating the ongoing staff shortage. Finding a new part-time job had brought a sense of relief, and I was content to work happily as I had before. But about a month into my tenure at the new store, the president's wife made a surprising appearance before me. Her unexpected visit seemed to be aimed directly at me, as she wasted no time in addressing the rumors she had heard. "I heard there's a junior high school dropout working at our store again, so I came to check," she stated bluntly. I couldn't help but sigh at her accusatory tone. "What's the issue?" "I haven't done anything wrong," I replied, feeling unfairly targeted. She persisted, laying blame at my feet for the troubles at the old store. But I refused to accept her accusations. "Isn't it more accurate to say that you're the one engaging in power harassment?" I challenged, frustration simmering beneath the surface. Former colleagues from the previous store attempted to intervene, but I waved them off. I couldn't let them shoulder the blame for something they weren't responsible for. As a middle school graduate, I can't possibly be held accountable for all the employees quitting, I asserted, refusing to be intimidated. The president's wife's anger flared at my defiance, but I stood my ground, supported by nods of agreement from fellow part-timers. "If you're having trouble understanding, let me spell it out for you. Your disdain for our educational backgrounds and the manager's incompetence have created a toxic environment," I explained, my words ringing with conviction. In the end, no one wants to endure power harassment while working part-time, and it was time for the president's wife to acknowledge the real issues at hand. When I accused the president's wife of power harassment, she immediately raised her voice in denial. "Are you trying to frame me without any evidence?" she retorted, her tone sharp with indignation. Just as she attempted to grab hold of me, the manager intervened, asserting firmly, "Can you please stop doing that to our part-timers?" Despite the risk to his own position, the manager stood his ground. "I am the manager of this store, and it's my duty to protect the employees. I will fulfill my role, whether you're the president's wife or not," he declared, earning applause from the other part-timers. With a resigned sigh, I reached for my smartphone. "I have evidence of power harassment," I stated calmly before playing a video. The footage showed the president's wife berating another part-timer at the previous store, clearly demonstrating a pattern of abusive behavior. As more part-timers stepped forward with their own recordings, it became evident that we had all experienced her mistreatment. "We're going to sue her," I announced, met with resolute nods of agreement from my colleagues and the manager. Furious at the manager's defiance, the president's wife impulsively fired him on the spot. But to her dismay, I revealed that I had recorded her dismissal as well, ensuring the manager's protection. Realizing the depth of her self-inflicted predicament, the president's wife attempted to flee. But before she could escape, I confronted her one final time. "There are more important things than education, aren't there? Sometimes humanity matters more than society," I remarked pointedly, causing her to pause. "How did you know?" she muttered, inadvertently admitting to her own insecurities. With her self-destruction complete, the president's wife retreated at a speed I had never seen before. In the aftermath, we pursued legal action against her, armed with solid evidence and the support of fellow part-timers. As news of her misconduct spread, similar complaints emerged from other stores, leading to a reckoning for her behavior. Forced to confront the consequences, the president demanded she repay her debts by working. It was a satisfying sight to witness her laboring angrily at a nearby drugstore, a fitting end to her reign of mistreatment. With a trustworthy manager at our helm, we continued our work with renewed dedication, free from the shadow of power harassment. Your brother gets the company, and you, well, you get my prayers and eternal blessings, Mom said, her frail hand squeezing mine as Dad's lawyer shuffled papers across the mahogany conference table. The $5 million construction empire I'd helped build for 15 years went to Marcus, while I inherited what the lawyer called intangible assets of immeasurable value. Who knew the IRS would find those prayers more valuable than cooked books? The funeral had been 3 days ago. Dad's casket was still fresh in the ground when we gathered in the law office that smelled of leather and old coffee. Marcus sat across from me, unable to hide his smirk behind his fake grief. He'd always been Dad's golden boy, the one who golfed with him on Sundays, who laughed at his crude jokes, who never questioned why our company won so many city contracts despite never being the lowest bidder. Natalie, honey, don't look so disappointed, Mom whispered, misreading my expression. Your father had his reasons. I wasn't disappointed. I was calculating. 15 years I'd spent building Sullivan Construction from a 2-truck operation into a regional powerhouse. 15 years of 16-hour days, of smoothing over Dad's temper with clients, of making sure projects actually got completed while Marcus glad-handed at country clubs. My MBA from Northwestern, my innovative project management systems, my relationships with every major supplier in the tri-state area, apparently worth less than Marcus's ability to mirror Dad's backslapping, bourbon-drinking persona. The house in Clearwater goes to my wife, along with the investment accounts, the lawyer droned on. Mom nodded serenely, as if she hadn't spent 30 years keeping Dad's books, as if she didn't know exactly what those investment accounts contained. To my daughter Natalie, I leave my collection of first edition books and my father's watch. The book collection was worth maybe $3,000. The watch, a sentimental Timex. Marcus couldn't contain himself anymore. Don't worry, Nat. I'm sure there's a place for you at the company. Maybe in accounting. You were always good with numbers. I smiled. That's kind of you, Marcus. I think I'll take some time off first. Process everything. What I didn't tell him was that I'd already processed everything. Every falsified invoice. Every inflated material cost. Every kickback disguised as a consulting fee. You see, while Marcus was learning to swing golf clubs, I was learning to read between the lines of financial statements. While he was sharing scotch with Dad, I was backing up files that documented 10 years of systematic tax evasion. The meeting ended with Marcus shaking hands like he'd just closed the deal of the century. Mom hugged me, whispering more about prayers and how God had a plan. The lawyer gave me a box with the books and the watch. I walked out of that office with nothing but cardboard and costume jewelry, yet I felt lighter than I had in years. You sure you're okay? My best friend Elena asked when I met her for drinks that evening. We sat at our usual spot at Berninger's, a wine bar that Marcus would call pretentious because they didn't serve beer. I'm better than okay, I said, swirling a glass of Malbec. I'm free. Free? Natalie, your brother just stole your inheritance. Your dad just screwed you over from beyond the grave. Did he go? I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo I'd taken that morning. See that? It's a bunch of filing cabinets. It's my new office. I signed a lease this morning. Sullivan Consulting. I'm going independent. Elena's eyes widened. With what clients? Marcus controls all the company contacts. Marcus controls the clients who are used to paying 20% over market rate for construction services. I'm targeting the ones who actually want their projects completed on time and within legitimate budgets. What I didn't tell Elena, what I couldn't tell anyone yet, was that I'd already had 3 meetings lined up. Former clients who'd quietly expressed frustration with Sullivan Construction's billing practices. Companies that had questioned discrepancies but been smooth-talked by Marcus or strong-armed by Dad. They were interested in working with someone who understood the industry but operated with integrity. The first 6 months were brutal. I lived off my savings, worked out of a cramped office that had previously been a massage therapy studio. The smell of lavender oil seemed permanently embedded in the walls. Marcus, meanwhile, was living large. He bought a yacht, named it Dynasty. Posted photos from the Bahamas, Vegas, Miami. Mom called occasionally, always ending with "I'm praying for you, honey." Praying I'll fail. I asked once bitterly. My path, as it turned out, led straight through the Department of Transportation's procurement office. Sheila Rodriguez, a procurement officer I'd dealt with for years, called me one afternoon. Natalie, I shouldn't be calling you, but did you know Sullivan Construction just bid on the new highway project? Let me guess. Lowest bid by exactly 1%. How did you know? Because that was Dad's formula. Underbid by just enough to secure the contract, then make up the difference with change orders and material substitutions. Lucky guess. Sheila, can I ask you something? Off the record? Sure. Have you ever wondered how Sullivan's Concrete always passes inspection when their material costs are 30% below market rate? The silence on the other end told me everything. Sheila knew. They all knew. But Dad had been careful, spreading enough money around to keep questions from being asked too loudly. Marcus, however, was not careful. Marcus was greedy. Month 8 was when I got my first major client. Brennan Development hired me to consult on a strip mall project. They'd fired Sullivan Construction after multiple deadline failures and cost overruns. I brought the project in 2 weeks early and under budget. Word spread. By month 10, I had 6 steady clients and 2 employees. Marcus called me on a Tuesday. Heard you're doing well for yourself. I'm doing okay. Maybe we could work together. Throw some subcontracting your way. Family helping family, you know. That's generous, Marcus, but I'm pretty busy with my own projects. Come on, Nat. Don't be proud. I'm trying to help you here. What he was trying to do was get me under his thumb. Make me dependent on Sullivan Construction's contracts so he could control me like Dad had controlled everyone. I appreciate it, but I'm good. You always were too stubborn. Just like. He caught himself before saying Mom, but we both knew that's where he was going. Anyway, offer stands. Month 12 brought an unexpected visitor. Thomas Chen, and yes, I know he said not to use that name, so let's call him Thomas Brenner, appeared at my office on a Thursday afternoon. He was IRS Criminal Investigation Division. Miss Sullivan, I'm investigating some irregularities in construction contracts involving federal funding. My heart hammered, but I kept my voice steady. I'm not sure how I can help. I've only been independent for a year. But you worked at Sullivan Construction for 15 years prior. You must have seen how the contracts were handled. Here was the moment, the crossroads. I could play dumb, protect the family name, keep Marcus's secrets. Or I could tell the truth. Agent Brenner, would you like some coffee? This might take a while. We talked for 3 hours. I didn't volunteer information about the falsified invoices or the cooked books. That would have been too obvious. Instead, I explained industry standards, typical pricing structures, normal markup rates. I let him draw his own conclusions about why Sullivan Construction's numbers never quite added up. When he asked for documentation, I mentioned that all company files were maintained by the current CEO. I wouldn't have access to any of that anymore, I said. Marcus was very clear about me turning over all company property when I left. Agent Brenner smiled slightly. Of course. Though if you happen to remember any specific contracts that might illustrate these industry standards, that would be helpful. I wrote down 3 contract numbers on a post-it note. 3 contracts I knew had the most egregious overcharges. If they pulled those threads, the whole tapestry would unravel. Mom called that Sunday. Natalie, honey, how are you? I've been praying for you extra hard this week. Any particular reason? Just a feeling. Mother's intuition. You know, Marcus has been working such long hours lately. Lots of meetings with lawyers. Business must be good. Mom's noncommittal hum spoke volumes. Natalie, I want you to know something. Your father, he wasn't always a good man. But he did love you, in his way. Mom. He thought he was protecting you, keeping you clean of it all. He said Marcus had the stomach for it. But you had too much of me in you. Too much conscience. My throat tightened. You knew. I knew enough. Prayed every night for God to sort it all out. Looks like he's starting to. The raid happened on a Tuesday. Federal agents descended on Sullivan Construction with warrants and boxes. Marcus called me screaming. What did you do? What did you tell them? I told them about industry standards, Marcus. If your books don't match industry standards, that's not my fault. You vindictive. The string of expletives that followed would have made Dad proud. I offered you help. I tried to bring you back in. You tried to control me. There's a difference. The investigation took 6 months. They found everything: the invoice padding, the material substitutions, the kickbacks, the tax evasion. 10 years of fraudulent federal contracts. The U.S. Attorney's Office built an airtight case, and Marcus's golf buddy suddenly didn't return his calls. Mom moved in with me during the trial. Her prayers had become more specific by then. Lord, grant the prosecutors wisdom. Give the judge discernment. Help the jury see the truth. It was like listening to a very polite mob boss order hits. You could have just told me, I said one evening as we watched the news coverage. About Dad, about the company. And make you complicit? No, honey. Sometimes the best gift a parent can give is ignorance. She patted my hand. Besides, I knew you'd figure it out. You always were the smart one. Marcus got 15 years. The company was liquidated to pay fines and restitution. The yacht, the cars, the house, all gone. I sat in the courtroom as they read the verdict, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, just a hollow sense of ending. Afterward, I drove Mom to the cemetery. We stood at Dad's grave in silence for a long while. Do you think he'd be angry? I asked. Furious, Mom said, but maybe proud too. You built something honest, something that will last. That's more than he ever did. My consulting firm thrived in the wake of Sullivan Construction's collapse. Clients appreciated working with someone who understood the industry's dark corners but chose to operate in the light. I hired more people, moved to a bigger office, one that didn't smell like lavender. I even bought a condo downtown, paid cash. Elena and I still meet for drinks at Berninger's every week. Last Tuesday, she raised her glass to prayers answered in mysterious ways. To inheritance that can't be taxed, I replied. We clinked glasses and drank. Outside, the city hummed with construction projects, legitimate ones with honest budgets and real timelines. My phone buzzed with emails from clients, but I ignored them. Success could wait an hour. Marcus wrote me a letter from federal prison last month, a rambling thing full of accusations and self-pity. I read it once, then filed it away. Maybe someday I'll feel something other than indifference. Maybe someday I'll visit him, let him rant in person. But not yet. Mom still prays, of course. These days, her prayers are mostly gratitude. Thank you for giving Natalie wisdom. Thank you for justice. Thank you for second chances. She's teaching me to pray too, though I'm not very good at it. My prayers tend to sound more like business plans. The Timex still keeps perfect time. I wear it every day, a reminder that the most valuable inheritances aren't always obvious. The first edition books line my office shelves, mostly unread but beautiful. Clients sometimes ask about them, and I tell them they were my father's. He must have been quite a reader, they usually say. He was complicated. I reply, which is the truest thing I can offer. This morning, I signed the papers to acquire a small construction company, a legitimate one that just needs better management. I'm keeping their name, their employees, their reputation. I'm just adding my systems, my integrity, my approach. Building something new on a foundation that's already solid. Mom asked if I was sure I wanted to get back into construction. It's what I know, I told her. But I'll do it right this time. I'll pray for you, she said, and for once I was grateful. So here I sit, in my debt-free condo, sipping wine and watching the sunset paint the city gold. The IRS audit that destroyed my brother made me rich in ways that have nothing to do with money. Turns out, inheriting prayers and blessings was the better deal all along. Though I still think Dad could have just left me the company and saved everyone a lot of trouble. 1B- and you're dead to me, Dad said, throwing my calculus textbook onto the pile of my belongings scattered across the wet lawn. Meanwhile, my brother Dylan stumbled out of his third total BMW that month, reeking of whiskey and vomit, and Dad rushed to help him inside. 20 years later, when Dad called my law firm begging me to give Dylan just one more chance, I wondered if he remembered that rainy night he taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. Family disappointment is the best motivator for success. The test paper was still in my backpack, red ink bleeding through where Professor Martinez had marked each error. 73%. Not failing, not even close. But in the Harrison household, anything below an A was a catastrophe. At least it was for me. Sophia, get your things and get out. Dad continued, his voice ice-cold as November rain pelted my photography equipment, my clothes, my senior year textbooks. I won't have a failure living under my roof. Mom stood in the doorway, wringing her hands but saying nothing. She never said anything when Dad got like this. Dylan lounged on the couch inside, gaming controller in hand, empty beer bottles creating a fortress around him. He dropped out of college 2 years ago, but that was different. Dylan was finding himself. Dylan was going through a phase. Dylan was the son who carried on the Harrison name. I was just the daughter who dared to struggle with multivariable calculus. It's one test, I tried, rain mixing with tears on my face. I can retake it, Professor Martinez said. I don't care what he said. You think the real world gives you retakes? You think law firms will care about your excuses? Dad's face was purple with rage. Your brother may have his struggles, but at least he doesn't pretend to be something he's not. That's when Dylan crashed through the front door. Hey, slight problem. The Beamer's in the Johnstons' pool. Dad's expression shifted instantly. Are you hurt, son? Nah, I'm good. Might need a new car, though. Dylan noticed me then, standing among my soaked possessions. What's with the yard sale? Your sister failed the test. She's leaving. Dylan shrugged. Sucks to suck, Sophie. I loaded what I could salvage into my beat-up Honda Civic, the car I bought myself with 3 summers of waitressing money. Dad had bought Dylan his first BMW for his 16th birthday, replaced it when he wrapped it around a telephone pole 6 months later, then replaced that one when he drove it into a storefront during a misunderstanding with local law enforcement. As I drove away, I saw Dad's arm around Dylan's shoulders in the rearview mirror, guiding him inside, probably to discuss which BMW model would replace the one currently taking a swim next door. I spent that night in my car in a Walmart parking lot, using their Wi-Fi to email Professor Martinez about extra credit opportunities. The next morning, I found a room for rent in a house with 3 other college seniors. It smelled like cat litter and burned popcorn, but it was dry and it was mine. Parents kicked you out? Asked Amara, one of my new roommates, as I dragged in a garbage bag full of damp clothes. Failed the test. Just one. Just one. She whistled low. Damn, my parents threw a party when I passed chemistry with a C+. That night, I made 3 decisions. First, I would ace the rest of my calculus tests. Second, I would get into law school without a penny from my father. Third, I would never let anyone make me feel worthless over a single mistake again. The first goal took months of late nights in the library. Professor Martinez became my unofficial mentor, staying after class to explain concepts until they clicked. You're not bad at math, he told me once. You're just learning at your own pace. There's no shame in that. I aced the final, B+ for the course overall. But Martinez wrote on my final paper, most improved student I've ever taught. The legal world will be lucky to have someone with your determination. The second goal took longer. I worked 3 jobs through the rest of undergrad, tutoring, waitressing, and filing papers at a small law firm downtown. The LSAT nearly broke me, but I studied with the same intensity I'd applied to calculus. When the acceptance letter from Georgetown came, I sat in my crappy shared bathroom and cried. Mom called occasionally, always when Dad wasn't home. He asks about you, she'd whisper. No, he doesn't. Well, he doesn't ask directly, but I can tell he thinks about you. How's Dylan? The silence always stretched too long before she answered. He's going through another rough patch. Rough patches, I learned, included 2 DUIs, 3 more totaled cars, and a stint in rehab that Dad proclaimed a transformative experience until Dylan left early to party in Cancun. Law school was brutal, beautiful, and exactly what I needed. I graduated magna cum laude, landed a job at a prestigious firm, and worked like my life depended on it, because it did. Every case I won, every promotion I earned, every client I impressed was a middle finger to the man who'd thrown me out for a B-. By 30, I was a senior associate. By 35, a partner. I started my own firm at 38, poaching the best lawyers from bigger firms with promises of work-life balance and profit sharing. Harrison and Associates expanded to 3 offices within 2 years. We specialized in employment law, helping people who'd been wronged by those in power. It felt like justice. I hadn't spoken to my father in 20 years when his name appeared on my phone screen last Tuesday afternoon. Sophia? His voice was older, rougher. It's Dad. I almost hung up. Instead, I heard myself say, What do you want? How are you? Successful. What do you want? He cleared his throat. I heard about your firm. What you've built. It's impressive. Still not calling to apologize. I see. Sophia. It's Ms. Harrison. We're not family, remember? You made that very clear. That was a long time ago. You have to understand, I was trying to push you to be your best. By throwing me out in the rain, by choosing my drunk brother over me. Dylan's had his struggles. Dylan's a 42-year-old alcoholic who's never held a job for more than 3 months. Mom's secret phone calls had kept me informed over the years. He's reformed now. 6 months sober. He's changed, Sophia. He needs a fresh start, a chance to prove himself. I was hoping, your firm has that new office in Denver. He cold. I laughed, actually laughed. You want me to hire Dylan? He's your brother. He's a liability. How many cars has he totaled now? 7, 8? That's in the past. He needs this, Sophia. We need this. The medical bills from his last accident, the legal fees. I'm underwater. If he could just get a steady job, show the court he's responsible. The court? What did he do now? Silence. Then, he may have had a small incident last month. But he's in treatment. He's taking it seriously this time. Like he took it seriously the last 5 times. You don't understand what it's like to watch your child struggle. You're right. I don't, because you kicked your child out for getting a B- on a calculus test, remember? That was different. You're right again. It was different. I was sober. I was trying. I just needed support and you gave me abandonment. Dylan crashed cars into buildings and you gave him new ones. Sophia, please, I'm begging you. The answer is no. You won't even consider it. He's family. Family. I let the word hang between us. Tell me, Dad, what family throws their daughter out for struggling with math? What family chooses their drunk son over their dedicated daughter? What family calls after 20 years of silence asking for favors? I did what I thought was best. You did what was easy. Dylan was easy to enable. I was easy to discard. Guess what? I'm not easy anymore. So you'll let your brother suffer despite me. I'll protect my employees and my firm from someone who's proven repeatedly that he can't be trusted. That's not spite. That's good business. You've become cold, Sophia. I've become successful. Isn't that what you wanted? He hung up. I sat in my office, my beautiful corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, just the hollow echo of a connection that had been severed long ago. Janet knocked on my door. Ms. Harrison, I have those resumes you requested for the Denver office manager position. Thank you. Any standouts? There's a woman named Carla Mendez. Started as a paralegal, worked her way up, single mom putting herself through night school for her MBA. No fancy credentials, but her references are incredible. I smiled. Set up an interview. That evening, I called Mom from my apartment, a penthouse I'd bought with my own money, earned through my own work. He told me he called you, she said softly. He wanted me to hire Dylan. I know, I told him not to, but you know your father. I used to think I did. Sophia, I need you to know something. That night, I should have stood up for you. I should have stopped him. I've regretted it every day since. Mom. No, let me finish. I was a coward. I chose peace over my daughter, and I lost you because of it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We both cried then, 20 years of hurt flowing through the phone line. Is Dylan really in treatment? I asked finally. He's in court-ordered rehab. Again, your father mortgaged the house to pay for lawyers after the last accident. Dylan hit a family. They were okay, thank God, but barely. Jesus. Your father still believes Dylan will turn it around. He can't see, he won't see. That Dylan's exactly who Dad taught him to be. Yes. We talked for another hour. She told me about her garden, her book club, her volunteer work at the library. I told her about my firm, my cases, my life. It felt like talking to a stranger who could have been family. The next morning, I promoted Carla Mendez to Denver office manager. She cried when I told her the salary. I won't let you down, she promised. I know you won't. You're not the type who gets handed things. You earn them. That afternoon, another unknown number called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Is this Sophia Harrison? A woman's voice, tired and stressed. Yes. I'm Patricia Chen, your brother's public defender. I'm calling because Dylan listed you as a character reference. He did what? I take it you weren't aware. He said you were a successful lawyer who could speak to his family support system. Ms. Chen, I haven't spoken to my brother in 20 years. I see. Well, that's unfortunate. He seems certain you'd help. My brother has always been certain people would help him. Usually they do. Not this time, I'm afraid. The prosecutor's pushing for maximum sentencing. Third DUI with injury, without family support, without employment prospects. He's looking at prison time. Yes. I thought about Dylan on that couch, game controller in hand, watching Dad throw my life onto the lawn. Good. I'm sorry. Actions have consequences, Ms. Chen. It's time my brother learned that lesson. You won't help at all? Write a letter. Offer employment. I'll write a letter. I'll tell the truth about a man who's been enabled his entire life, who's never faced real consequences, who's endangered countless innocent people. Will that help? She sighed. Not in the way he hopes. Thank you for your time, Ms. Harrison. That night, I did write a letter. Not to the court, but to Professor Martinez, thanking him for believing in a struggling student when her own family wouldn't. He wrote back immediately. I always knew you'd go far. Students like you make teaching worthwhile. 3 weeks later, Dylan was sentenced to 5 years. Dad called 17 times. I didn't answer once. Mom visited last week. It was the first time I'd seen her in 20 years. She looked older, grayer, smaller somehow. Your office is beautiful, she said, running her fingers along my desk. Thank you for coming. Your father doesn't know I'm here. I figured. We had lunch at a small cafe near my office. She told me Dylan was adjusting to prison, that Dad visited him every week, that the house was too quiet now. He still has all your awards, she said suddenly. Your high school diplomas, your debate trophies, hidden in his office closet. I saw him looking at them once. That doesn't change anything. I know. I just thought you should know. As we parted, she hugged me tight. I'm proud of you, Sophia. So proud. You became everything we should have helped you become. I became everything despite him. Maybe that's what makes it more impressive. I watched her go, this woman who gave birth to me but never quite figured out how to be my mother. I felt sorry for her, trapped between a husband who couldn't admit fault and a son who couldn't accept it. That evening, I reviewed applications for our new scholarship program, full rides for law students who'd overcome family rejection. The Harrison Scholarship, I called it. Dad would hate the irony. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Sophia, it's Dylan. Prison calls have that distinctive echo. I almost hung up. What do you want? I wanted to say sorry. For what? Watching Dad throw me out. Taking his side. 20 years of silence. All of it. I was a shit brother. You were. Dad said you wouldn't hire me. Dad was right. I get it. I wouldn't hire me either. He paused. You know what the funny thing is? I always knew you'd make it. Even that night I knew. You were always tougher than me. That's not funny. That's sad. Yeah, maybe. Sophie, I need you to know. I never asked Dad to call you. That was all him. But you gave my name to your lawyer. I was desperate. Stupid, but desperate. You've always been both. He laughed, bitter but real. True. Look, I know you hate May. I don't hate you, Dylan. I nothing you. You're just someone I used to know. Silence. Then, that's worse somehow. Maybe, but it's what you earned. Fair enough. Take care, Sophie. It's Sophia. And you too. I hung up and went back to the scholarship applications. One caught my eye. A young man kicked out for being gay, working 3 jobs to pay for school. Another. A woman whose parents said law was man's work. Story after story of people who'd been told they weren't enough, who decided to prove otherwise. I approved them all. That night, I stood on my balcony, city lights sparkling below. 20 years ago, I'd slept in a car, rain-soaked and heartbroken. Now I owned the kind of life Dad had said I'd never achieve. Not despite that night, but because of it. He'd meant to break me. Instead, he'd forged me into something unbreakable. My phone rang one more time. Dad again. This time, I answered. What? Your brother called, said you talked. Briefly. He said you were right. About everything. I waited. I failed you, Sophia. I failed you both, but I failed you worse. I see that now. No, you don't. You see that Dylan's in prison and you need someone to blame besides yourself. Maybe, but I also see that you're everything I said I wanted you to be, and I had nothing to do with it. Less than nothing. You actively worked against it. Yes. We breathed together across the miles, two strangers who shared DNA and nothing else. I'm hanging up now, I said. Don't call again. Sophia. Goodbye, Dad. I blocked his number, then Dylan's. Then, after a moment's hesitation, I saved Mom's. Tomorrow, I'd interview more scholarship candidates. Next week, I'd argue a case for a woman fired for taking maternity leave. Next month, I'd open another office, hire more lawyers, help more people. But tonight, I raised a glass of very expensive wine to the girl who'd stood in the rain with a B- and a broken heart. She'd done low. Better than low. She'd done it all herself. And that, I decided, was the only validation that mattered. Why are you still alive? My father's voice cracked through the wedding reception like a gunshot, his champagne glass chattering on the marble floor as 300 guests turned to stare at me standing in the doorway. The man who collected my life insurance payout 18 months ago was looking at his supposedly dead daughter like she was a ghost, which in a way I was. But the real question wasn't why I was alive. It was why he told everyone I was dead in the first place. The string quartet screeched to a halt mid-waltz. My sister Elena, radiant in her $10,000 wedding dress, stood frozen at the head table, her bouquet slipping from her fingers. The groom's family exchanged bewildered glances while my stepmother Gloria clutched her pearls so hard I thought they might disintegrate. I stepped into the ballroom, my heels clicking against the floor with deliberate precision. Hello, Dad. Beautiful wedding. Sorry I'm late. I had trouble getting an invitation since apparently I've been dead for over a year. The silence was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop in the Sultan's Palace ballroom of the Four Seasons, where my family was hosting what the society pages would later call the wedding scandal of the decade. Security. Dad barked, his face cycling through colors like a broken traffic light. Remove this imposter immediately. But I was already pulling documents from my purse. Imposter? Really, Dad? Should we discuss the death certificate you filed? The life insurance claim? Or maybe we should start with why you've been withdrawing $20,000 a month from the trust fund Grandma left me, the one that was supposed to be inaccessible until I turned 30. I don't know who you are, he stammered, backing away, but my daughter Sienna died in a car accident in Bangkok. We had a funeral, we warned. Did you? I interrupted, projecting my voice so everyone could hear. Because the investigator you hired to fake my death told me you were quite specific about the instructions. Make it look real, but make sure there's no body to identify. Thai authorities are easier to bribe, you said. Elena finally found her voice. Sienna? Is that really you? I turned to my sister, softening slightly. It's me, Elle. I'm sorry to do this at your wedding, but Dad made sure I couldn't contact you any other way. Changed your numbers, monitored your emails, told everyone I was dead. This is insane. Gloria shrieked. Richard, tell them this isn't true. But Dad was already backing toward the exit, pulling out his phone with shaking hands, probably calling his lawyer, or trying to figure out how to flee the country before the FBI caught up with him. Sit down, Richard, a commanding voice called from the back of the room. Everyone turned to see my grandmother, his mother, walking in with her cane, flanked by 2 federal agents. We have much to discuss. Mother? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be in the memory care facility. The one you put me in against my will. Grandma's voice was sharp as ever. The one where you told them I had dementia so you could control my estate. Yes, Sienna found me there. Imagine my surprise when my supposedly dead granddaughter showed up to rescue me. I pulled out more papers. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption, but you're about to witness something historic. Dad didn't just fake my death. He's been systematically stealing from the entire family for years. Lies, Dad roared, but the federal agents were already moving toward him. Really? I held up a bank statement, then explained why Grandma's $50 million estate has been reduced to less than $2 million. Explained the forged signatures, the shell companies, the offshore accounts in the Caymans. One of the agents, a stern woman with steel gray hair, stepped forward. Richard Hartwell, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, identity theft, and filing false death certificates. You have the right to remain silent. Wait. Elena's new husband, James, stood up. What the hell is happening? Richard, you told me Sienna died in an accident. We donated to charity in her name. He told everyone I died because I discovered what he was doing, I explained, addressing the room. 18 months ago, I was working at the family company when I stumbled onto discrepancies, millions missing. When I confronted him privately, hoping to handle it within the family, he tried to have me killed. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Several guests were now recording on their phones, and I knew this would be viral within hours. The car accident in Bangkok was staged, I continued. But the men he hired warned me instead. Turns out Dad had stiffed them on previous jobs. They helped me disappear, create a new identity, gather evidence. I've spent the last year and a half working with the FBI to build a case. FBI? Gloria looked like she might faint. Richard, tell me this isn't true. Dad's response was to try to run, but the agents were faster. As they cuffed him, he turned to glare at me with pure hatred. You always were too smart for your own good. Smart enough to install keyloggers on your computers before I died. I said. Smart enough to document every transaction, every forged document, every bribe. Smart enough to know you'd eventually come after Elena's inheritance too. Elena sank into her chair. My inheritance? Why do you think he pushed so hard for you to marry James? I asked gently. James's family owns the largest shipping company on the East Coast. Dad's been laundering money through their containers for 2 years. That's a lie. James protested, but his father had gone pale. Container 4785B arrived at Port Newark 3 weeks ago, I recited from memory. Manifested as carrying electronics. Actually carrying $12 million in cash from Dad's Cayman accounts. Should I continue? James's father stood abruptly. We need to leave. Now. I wouldn't, Grandma said calmly. The FBI has agents at every exit. Turns out Richard involved quite a few of you in his schemes. The Hartwell family fortune built on fraud is crumbling today. The room erupted into chaos. Some guests tried to leave, only to be met by federal agents. Others sat in stunned silence. Elena was crying, her perfect makeup running in streams down her face. I walked over to her, kneeling beside her chair. Elle, I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you, but Dad had people watching you. Every call, every text, every email. It wasn't safe. You let me think you were dead, she whispered. Do you know what that did to me? I spoke at your funeral. I know, I said, my own eyes filling with tears. But he would have killed us both if I contacted you. The FBI said the only way to keep you safe was to maintain the illusion until we had enough evidence. The wedding, she said suddenly. Oh God, the wedding. It's all paid for with stolen money, isn't it? I nodded reluctantly. I'm afraid so. The FBI will probably freeze all the family accounts by tomorrow. She laughed bitterly. The society wedding of the year, and the father of the bride is being arrested for faking his daughter's death and stealing millions. Mom must be so proud. We both looked at Gloria, who was having what appeared to be a nervous breakdown at the head table, alternating between screaming at the agents and trying to call her lawyer. Did she know? Elena asked. Some of it, I admitted. She knew about the money laundering, helped spend the profits. But I don't think she knew about my death until after. Dad probably told her the same story about Bangkok. Agent Martinez, one of the FBI agents, called out, We need to process the scene. I squeezed Elena's hand. There's a silver lining. Grandma's lawyers already filed to reverse all of Dad's transactions. Most of the stolen money has been recovered. You'll have your real inheritance, free and clear. But not my father, she said quietly. No, I agreed. Not the father we thought we had. But maybe that's for the best. The man who raised us, who we loved. I don't think he ever really existed. It was all an act, a performance to hide what he really was. As the agents led Dad away, he turned back one last time. Everything I did was for this family? No, I called back. Everything you did was for yourself. The family was just your cover story. Randall approached us, looking frailer than I remembered, but with fire still in her eyes. Elena, dear, I'm sorry about your wedding. But Sienna's right. Once the assets are unfrozen, you'll have more than enough for a proper celebration. one not tainted by lies. Alina stood, wobbling slightly in her designer heels. I don't even know if I want to get married anymore. James's family is involved in this mess. How can I trust anything? Don't make any decisions tonight, I advised. Take time. The truth has a way of revealing who people really are. If James loves you, he'll understand. If not, better to know now. The wedding photographer, who'd been capturing everything with professional detachment, approached tentatively. Should I keep shooting? For evidence or document everything, Grandma told him. This is history, the fall of the Hartwell Empire built on lies. As guests were interviewed by agents and the wedding dissolved into a crime scene, I found myself standing with Elena and Grandma in a quiet corner. My sister had stopped crying, her expression now one of exhausted acceptance. How did you do it? She asked. Live underground for 18 months, knowing everyone thought you were dead. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, I admitted. I worked as a waitress in Portland under a fake name. Lived in a studio apartment with bars on the windows. Every day I wanted to call you, to tell you I was okay. But every time I picked up the phone, I remembered Dad's threats. He said if I exposed him, he'd make sure you had an accident too. He threatened me. Elena's voice was small. Multiple times. Said the family had to present a united front and anyone who broke ranks would regret it. I couldn't risk it, Elle. I couldn't lose you too. But you didn't lose me, she said, pulling me into a fierce hug. I'm here. We're here. And he's going to prison where he belongs. Randall watched us with sad eyes. I should have seen it sooner. My own son, a monster. But he was always so charming, so convincing. Even when Sienna came to me with evidence, part of me didn't want to believe it. Believe it now, I said. The trial will be public. Everything will come out. The family name will be mud for years. Good, Alana said fiercely. Let it burn. We'll build something better. James appeared, his face grave. Elena, we need to talk. My father, there are things I didn't know. Things about the business, about our connections to your father. I swear I had no idea. She looked at him for a long moment. We'll talk. But not tonight. Tonight, I need to be with my sister, my living sister. He nodded, backing away. I understand. I'll be at the hotel if you need me. As the ballroom emptied and crime scene tape went up, the three of us, grandmother, sister, and the daughter who'd returned from the dead, stood together in the ruins of what should have been a celebration. What happens now? Elena asked. Now we rebuild, Grandma said firmly. The Hartwell name might be tainted, but our family, our real family, is stronger than one man's greed. We have each other, we have the truth, and we have a chance to start over. Together, I added, taking both their hands. No more secrets, no more lies. Just us. Elena managed a watery smile. You know what the funny thing is? I spent months planning this perfect wedding, the social event of the season. And instead, I got my sister back. Maybe that's a better gift than any party could be. As we left the Four Seasons, walking past police cars and news vans already gathering for the story, I thought about the last 18 months. The fear, the loneliness, the constant looking over my shoulder. But also the strength I'd found, the determination to bring justice not just for myself, but for everyone Dad had hurt. He'd asked why I was still alive. The answer was simple, because someone needed to stop him. Someone needed to protect the family from the very person who was supposed to protect us. And sometimes the best way to save your family is to let them think you're gone. Then come back when they need you most. Even if it means crashing a wedding to do it.